Welcome to American National Government. In this course, you will discuss the purpose, structure, and evolution of United States government.
I'm Jordan O'Connell, History and Government Instructor at Northeast Iowa Community College. This lecture distills a decade of my written notes taken from American Government, Roots and Reform, American Government by Lenz and Holman, and our course-assigned OpenStax American Government textbook. This lecture focuses on crisis lawmaking and the final Civic test. The core question is this: what kind of law can a government write during crisis if speed is necessary, the damage is real, and every shortcut risks abuse later? The core competency is to outline the framework of a new law designed to help address a crisis in American society today. What kind of law can a government write during crisis if speed is necessary, the damage is real, and every shortcut risks abuse later? The pressure moves through statutory authority, eligibility rules, appropriations, agency assignment, oversight, fraud control, and sunset clauses that decide whether emergency power remains accountable. Drafting a law is harder than naming a crisis. Anyone can say housing costs too much, healthcare fails too many people, addiction destroys families, artificial intelligence threatens jobs, floods overwhelm towns, schools need help, immigration systems strain, rural hospitals close, democratic trust decays, or public safety needs repair. A law has to do more. It has to define the problem, identify authority, choose an agency, appropriate money, set eligibility, create enforcement, build oversight, respect constitutional limits, assign responsibility across levels of government, and decide when the emergency power ends. The civic problem is that crisis makes bad law tempting, fear rewards speed, suffering rewards moral certainty. Political pressure rewards slogans. Agencies and state governments still need definitions, forms, staff, data systems, payment channels, reporting rules, and fraud controls. If lawmakers skip those details, the crisis does not disappear. It moves into failed implementation, wasted money, excluded people, lawsuits, abuse of power, or public distrust. Policy design means defining a public problem and building a workable government response. Legislation is proposed or enacted law. Implementation is the process of putting law into practical effect. Stakeholders are the people, groups, institutions, and governments affected by a policy. A sunset clause makes a law or power expire unless lawmakers renew it. Crisis governance means making decisions under emergency conditions when speed, authority, evidence, and accountability all compete. The CARES Act of 2020 is the source anchor because it shows crisis law at scale. Congress and President Donald Trump acted during COVID-19 to move money through households, unemployment systems, businesses, health providers, states, local governments, and financial channels. The law shows both the necessity and danger of speed. Emergency law can prevent collapse. It can also create fraud exposure, eligibility, confusion, administrative overload, and accountability gaps. That law put the final civic test in institutional form. Can Congress act fast without writing reckless power into the statute book? Before a new law exists, the federal government already has crisis machinery on the shelf. The Stafford Act lets presidents declare major disasters and move FEMA money through public assistance, individual assistance, and hazard mitigation channels. The Public Health Service Act gives the Secretary of Health and Human Services emergency powers under Section 319. The Defense Production Act can prioritize contracts and direct industrial capacity during emergency need. Supplemental appropriations bills can push large sums through agencies quickly, but those sums still have to survive apportionment, obligation, grant formulas, and audit trails. Problem definition determines which shelf of authority opens. A pandemic can be framed as public health, labor market collapse, hospital capacity failure, education disruption, or supply chain breakdown. A flood can be framed as emergency response, infrastructure adaptation, insurance failure, or zoning failure. An opioid crisis can be framed as criminal trafficking, behavioral health, pharmaceutical regulation, and rural hospital strain all at once. The narrower and cleaner the problem definition, the easier it becomes to assign an agency, an appropriation path, and a review standard. Constitutional authority must appear early because emergency rhetoric does not suspend enumeration. Congress may rely on taxing and spending power, commerce power, war powers, enforcement clauses, or conditions attached to federal funds. States still carry police powers over health, safety, welfare, and morals. Local governments act through powers delegated by state law. A proposal that ignores those boundaries invites litigation, delay, or administrative paralysis before a single check reaches the intended target. Implementation depends on pre-existing administrative pipes. Treasury can move tax rebates or credits through filing records. SBA can run loan guarantees and lender participation programs. HHS can move grants through hospital and state health channels. State unemployment offices can process claims, but only through software, staffing, and identity verification systems that may already be old and overloaded. OMB has to apportion funds. Inspectors General need reporting authority. A crisis bill that assumes any agency can instantly absorb new duties is already writing failure into the rollout. The real design alternatives sit inside those institutions: speed versus accuracy, broad eligibility versus targeted need, federal uniformity versus state discretion, fraud prevention versus access, temporary relief versus permanent reform, public administration versus private delivery, and emergency discretion versus legislative control. A serious lawmaker names the trade-off before opponents weaponize it, and before agencies discover it too late. Crisis statutes also need audit design from the first draft. A bill can require quarterly reports, inspector general access, public dashboards, clawback authority, fraud penalties, data sharing, and sunset review. Those provisions may slow rollout, but they keep emergency spending from becoming a blank check. Speed without a record makes later accountability nearly impossible. Congress faces the pressure of drafting under time, conflict, and public demand. Committees may hold hearings, but crises shorten deliberation. Leadership packages provisions into large bills. Staff write definitions, lawyers check authority, budget analysts estimate cost, agencies warn about feasibility, lobbyists push for inclusion, governors and mayors ask for flexibility, advocacy groups demand protection for vulnerable populations, opponents hunt for waste. The final bill may carry direct payments, grants, loans, tax changes, reporting rules, and emergency authority in one enormous vehicle. The CARES Act shows the scale problem. Direct payments required eligibility rules, IRS data, income thresholds, payment mechanisms, and outreach. Expanded unemployment support required state systems to process claims at volumes many could not handle. Business assistance required rules for loans, forgiveness, payroll documentation, lender participation, fraud prevention, and later audits. Health funding required formulas and distribution channels. State and local aid required allocation decisions. Each program solved one problem while creating an implementation burden. Agencies then face the operational test. A statute may order help within days, but agencies need guidance, forms, websites, call centers, fraud systems, data sharing agreements, procurement, and staff. If Congress uses old administrative pipes for new demand, those pipes may burst. A state unemployment system built on outdated software cannot instantly process a tidal wave of claims because lawmakers used urgent language. A small local office cannot manage a complicated grant without technical support. Implementation capacity should shape policy ambition. The first months of COVID relief showed that strain in real time. Treasury had to push direct payments through bank accounts, paper checks, and debit cards using IRS records that were incomplete for many low-income households. SBA lenders jammed the E-Tran system as Paycheck Protection Program applications flooded in. State unemployment offices faced identity theft, backlog, and obsolete coding languages while trying to administer pandemic unemployment assistance. HHS then had to distribute provider relief fund money to hospitals, while inspectors general and the Pandemic Response Accountability Committee started building the audit trail after the money was already moving. Stakeholders experienced the law unevenly. A household with stable tax records may receive a payment quickly. A person without recent filing information may wait. A small business with a bank relationship may access loans faster than a business outside traditional credit networks. A hospital with grant writing capacity may capture funds more easily than a rural clinic with thin staff. A state with modern systems may process benefits faster than a state with neglected administration. The law may announce equal relief while the administrative channels distribute unequal speed. Oversight actors become essential because crisis money attracts abuse. Inspectors general, the Government Accountability Office, congressional committees, agency auditors, prosecutors, journalists, and whistleblowers help detect fraud, waste, and mismanagement. Fraud control, though, can slow delivery. If every applicant faces heavy verification, help arrives late. If verification is too loose, money leaks to false claims. Crisis law has to choose a risk posture. That choice should be honest. Federalism creates another pressure. National crises often require national money, but state and local governments deliver many services. Public health orders, school operations, unemployment systems, policing, housing, emergency management, and licensing often run through state or local authority. A federal law may offer funds with conditions, but states may vary in capacity and willingness. Uniform national rules can produce consistency but ignore local conditions. State discretion can improve fit but create inequality by geography.
Any workable crisis framework has to specify who qualifies for assistance, what agency administers it, how much money Congress appropriates, how funds reach recipients, what states must do, what data agencies collect, what appeals process exists, what misuse triggers penalties, and when Congress must review the program. That is not glamorous, it is governing. The CARES Act moved through Congress in March 2020 under compression that would normally terrify institutional purists. The statute packed recovery rebates, forgivable small business lending through the Paycheck Protection Program, expanded unemployment support, health appropriations, airline stabilization, and oversight structures into one emergency vehicle. The room pressure proved consequential. Lawmakers were facing collapsing markets, lockdown orders, hospital alarms, and a public demanding instant relief. Under that pressure, speed became part of the legislative argument. The source reads like a delivery map for money, discretion, and risk. Recovery rebates depended on IRS records. Pandemic unemployment assistance depended on state unemployment systems that were already buckling. Business relief depended on banks, lender participation rules, payroll documentation, and later forgiveness standards. Hospital and state aid depended on formulas and agency distribution. The Pandemic Response Accountability Committee and Special Inspectors General existed because Congress knew emergency money without audit trails would invite abuse. That is why the document works as a tactical weapon rather than a civics example. Broad eligibility reaches people quickly, but can send money where need is thinner. Tight targeting conserves resources, but multiplies forms, delays, denials, and administrative choke points. Sunset clauses can block permanent emergency discretion, but short deadlines can also create cliffs while a crisis still burns. Fraud controls protect public funds, but aggressive verification can punish legitimate claimants who lack records or time. The same design fight would appear in any new crisis bill. A climate resilience law would have to define eligible infrastructure, federal-state cost shares, environmental review, and maintenance obligations. A housing bill would have to choose among supply incentives, vouchers, shelters, zoning conditions, and homelessness services. An AI law would have to define covered systems, auditing authority, procurement rules, liability, and agency expertise. An opioid law would have to balance treatment, enforcement, harm reduction, prescribing controls, and local implementation capacity. Emergency powers also raised the hardest expiration question in the file. COVID relief exposed old weaknesses in unemployment software, public health supply chains, paid leave, nursing homes, and household savings. Temporary authority may need a sunset, but the institutional weakness may require permanent repair. The unresolved source tension is whether lawmakers can write a statute strong enough to act in crisis without letting fear draft the next blank check. The final civic test begins with better questions of government. Who has authority? Which institution acts? What procedure controls it? Who pays? Who benefits? Who is excluded? What records prove eligibility? What agency implements? What court might review it? What oversight exists? What happens when the first plan fails? Those questions are less dramatic than slogans and more useful than outrage. A serious crisis law framework therefore needs disciplined structure, a problem definition, constitutional authority, stakeholders, administering agency, funding source, eligibility rule, enforcement tool, oversight mechanism, federalism choice, and sunset or review provision. Government is never clean, simple, or noble by default. It is a machine of clauses, offices, elections, parties, courts, agencies, media, groups, taxes, programs, and policy tools. Machines can protect rights, waste money, check power, exclude people, deliver help, hide responsibility, and force choices citizens would rather avoid. The unresolved judgment is the final civic test. When the next crisis arrives, will the public demand speed alone, or will it insist on a law that can actually work without handing government careless power? A citizen who can read that machinery has crossed the line between frustration and responsibility. The unresolved question is whether crisis law can move fast enough to save people while remaining narrow enough to deserve trust.
If you're curious how I'm using AI to build these lectures and reshape higher education, visit thelibertytolearn.com. I'll see you in class.